Prices sky high. This is how to negotiate any deal.
Turn down for what? Turn down for what?
Hey, what's up guys? So I'm doing this video because I had a comment asking about how you negotiate on property prices when they are sky high, just like they are right now. And this is a really interesting topic to debate and discuss because there is no one size fits all, but there is definitely an art, a way to negotiate if it's possible to secure a deal for an attractive price or a good deal for everybody. So I'm going to break it down in this video to the types of deals that you should be looking for and the types of scenarios where you could potentially negotiate a good deal. Then I'm going to talk about how you can negotiate to get to a good deal for you and the vendor. Then I'm going to finish by how you secure it, because we all know that there is things like buyer's remorse or deals falling through at the last minute. So to go through all of the pain to get a deal done and then to lose it is probably the most disheartening thing that can happen in any property transaction. Before we get started, I just need you all to do me a huge favor and smash the like button, and don't forget to hit subscribe. So let's get straight into it. Now, I don't care if you have never sold anything in your life or you are the best salesperson in the world. There are some circumstances, there are some scenarios where you can never come to a deal. You can never negotiate a deal that works for you and the vendor, or the deal that you want to do. So the first thing is to sieve through the deals that can't be negotiated to what you want. And I'll give you an example. This might sound a little bit over the top, but if you literally want to buy a property with a 5% deposit and it's a commercial unit which is empty that you want to turn into, say, a block of flats, and you've got no experience, and the price is 500,000 but your deposit only allows you to spend 250,000, you need to be realistic. The chances are there's so many different hurdles in that particular project that you shouldn't necessarily dismiss it straight away, but the hurdles are too extreme in every circumstances to overcome. So it doesn't matter how good your negotiation powers are, even if you did negotiate the price down to, say, 350 and 100 of that is deferred until you've completed the refurb, and then you sell it on and then you pay the vendor afterwards, and all these different fundamentals. The 5% is never going to allow you to borrow the money from a high street lender or a challenger lender to buy the property. And yes, you could probably go and get private finance and private investment, but without experience of doing those things, is it going to be realistic that you're going to be able to obtain it? So you need to just collectively look at the picture and think, is this a realistic point of negotiation, or are you just wasting your time and someone else's? And then so moving on from that to non-win deals or non-negotiable deals, to probably what everyone is watching this video asking is, how do you negotiate prices down when they are skyrocket? Literally at the moment, we're having people who have had properties on the market, haven't sold because they've been overpriced, relaunching them probably 10% more and then selling them. And I really like this example because this is an example of how to go into every single negotiation. No matter what end you are, if you're selling something or you're buying something, if I'm the buyer and I'm dealing with the vendor, every single negotiation results in a sale. It's just either I sell them a reason to take my deal, or they sell me a reason that they can't. Either way, a sale is made. It's just a case of who's going to close, you or me. And with that mindset, you need to go into your negotiation ready that you could be sold to, or you need to be doing the selling, the negotiating, because negotiating is just effectively a form of selling. Now, we've all watched The Wolf of Wall Street, and we have all seen the scene where they say, sell me this pen. Now, this 9 times out of 10, when you ask someone to sell you a pen, they grab the pen off of you and they start talking about how great the pen is. I would personally recommend this pen and everything about the pen. Now, the point of the exercise is nothing to do with the pen. It's to see how you engage with the person that you're selling to. And one of the quickest ways that you can engage with the person is by asking them questions. I'm talking about questions that are relevant, or questions that will lead to a relevant question to deal with the topic at hand. So a really good example of this is if you're negotiating on a price of a property and you go straight in with, well, let's start talking about doing a deal because I want to knock you down. The guard goes up. A far better leading question would be, how long have you lived here? Because that gets the vendor talking about the property in question, the property that you are looking to buy, and more importantly, negotiate a deal. And with negotiations, you're never going to be able to directly ask someone for a discount because their answer is always going to be no. Or if it's not, they're going to be reluctant to give you more than just a few percent. But by having a conversation about the property and leading with a question which starts the other side talking, will mean that you will be able to extract information out. It might be information about the property, it might be information about their personal circumstances, it might be financial information that they start just to spill out through the process of the conversation. But what's really important is that when you start to extract the information out, you hold on to it. I used to use an analogy that if you were plucked up and put in the middle of a desert, in the middle of a war zone, what's the one thing that you would ask for? And it would typically be a gun. The gun is useless without the bullets to fire back. And the information that you get from the other side are your bullets. And the more bullets you have, the more chance you have of hitting your target, which is to do a deal. So it does pay you to spend the time talking to someone. Now, on the flip side of that, I'm not talking about waffling on for hours on end and never ever getting to the topic at hand or even talking about the situation that you're there to talk about, which is the property. I'm talking about having a conversation, but always steering it back. You can sometimes go off on a tangent, but always steer it back to the topic at hand. And this isn't some psychological way of a salesperson convincing someone what they do or don't want to do. This is just simply understanding as much as you can about the property that you're looking to buy. Because through the process of the conversation, if you realise that the person when they bought it had a survey done and it was like there was a sign of subsidence, or there was an issue with the roof, or the electrics needed upgrading, or the boiler needed replacing, or whatever, this may be information that you've missed. And that is fundamentally something that you have to consider when you're buying a property as a cost. And that cost can be used as a negotiation. The other side of the coin is to get the information around the person and their finances. I'm a massive, massive fan of this one. And this works across right through to a single direct to vendor lead, right through to a multinational corporation that you buy a commercial property from. I've done it with all types of sellers. And where this has really worked for me is when you deal with large companies. And if you try and understand and learn what their process is to the reason of selling this property, you can use it to your advantage. So you're not necessarily the cheapest, but you become the solution to their problem. And a great example is when you're buying a pub from a brewery, and if they need to offload this pub before their year end, and that year end is like a matter of months or even weeks away, then you can position yourself over everyone else to buy that in the quickest format, which makes your proposal more attractive. And I'll give you an example. I've done this on a number of pubs, but there was a pub that I recently did a video about, which we ended up buying massively below market value. It was on for like $325 and we ended up buying it for like $210. And I've done this literally dozens of times. But I wasn't interested in the property, but because their year end was coming up, I made them a cheeky offer. But the proposal behind it was cash, undertaken, paid on acceptance of offer, exchange within 14 days, completion within 28, which fell in line with their year end, so it was off their books. And this put my position above everyone else's. And even though my offer wasn't the best, the proposal was the best. The deal was the best deal for them. So I was able to get a really good price. And this transpires across every single property deal. Now, you've heard me all say that I will never buy a deal unless it's significantly below market value. But I don't sit here waiting for those deals just to come to me. I negotiate and I become a great deal maker. Another example is more recently, I did a video about a property that I bought, converted to a 5-bed, 5-ensuite. It's been valued, there's like 100 grand's worth of equity, but I sold it for like 20% more than that because the market is booming. And I paid like $217,000 for the property. And the deal was being advertised for $250,000. And this tends to be the price for these sorts of 3-bed ex-local authority properties. They tend to be $250,000, if not even more. And this was just sat on the open market, ready for the masses, the copycats that I've talked about before, to come along and just overpay and not understand the circumstances. But I had a conversation with the lady selling it. I understood the reasons why. She'd lived there like 45 years. She had her heart set on a bungalow. So I talked to her about my process and what I could do for her. And it wasn't trying to negotiate the deal right down in price. It was understanding the amount of work that needed to be done. This needed new windows, it needed a new heating system. It never had one before. It needed a huge amount of investment, far more than I would look to put into these types of deals. And when I explained that and I used my position of strength to negotiate a deal that worked for me and her, I was able to buy it significantly below market value. And it's that process that does enable you to negotiate these deals. But you will waste your time if you don't do what I said right at the start of the video, if you don't iron out the non-negotiable deals, the non-controllable points in a negotiation. Don't waste your time. And don't see buying another property overpriced as success. You see it all the time on social media, people posting about how they've bought X, they've bought Y. Well, 6 months, 2 years down the line, those properties are either being repossessed or they're being sold at a loss. Do you want to be talking about the properties that you're buying, or do you want to be talking about the success that you've had when the deal is done? And that is two very different scenarios and two very different types of people. Decide which one you want to be. And just to finish on about not losing the deal at the other end. So a deal that I negotiated about 5 years ago to purchase a commercial property, which was grade 2 listed, to convert into 4 high-end split level apartments. That deal is now done and dusted, and the units, I believe, are all sold bar one. But the negotiation came that I agreed to pay the price that the vendor wanted, even though it was probably more than what it would sell for on the open market or auction. So this negotiation, you could argue, was pretty bad. I was agreeing to overpay, to pay more than what the property was worth. But the deal that I made, that I put together, saved me way more than the cost of the additional money that I was paying for the property. So I think I paid like 750,000 for this property, and it was worth, I reckon, around 700 without planning permission. But the deal was an option to buy, a contract in place to go and get planning permission. I knew the second that planning permission was obtained, the property would be worth more than what I'd agreed to pay for it. And in the end, the planning permission and the grade 2 listed consent ended up taking me almost 2 years to get through. Now, had I bought that property for say 700,000 and I borrowed, let's say 500,000 at 1% a month, being an empty commercial property, that would have cost me £5,000 a month. 60,000 a year over 2 years is 120,000. So even though I would have paid say 700,000, it would end up costing me 820,000 time I got the planning through. And let's say the property was worth 900 to 950. Well, that same property was worth the same amount after the planning permission, but it cost me zero in interest. It cost me 50,000 more in the purchase price, but all being said and done, it was a saving of 70,000. So even though I negotiated a deal that actually saw me pay a little bit more, overall, the deal that was made was significantly better for me and the vendor, because I found a win-win solution. And that is the art of negotiation. If you can maybe find a property that you really want to buy, give them the price that they want, but negotiate terms which benefits you financially longer term, like options, like delayed completions, all of those different tools in your belt that can be used to make you a great deal maker. So I hope you found that useful in terms of how to negotiate some of these crazy prices down, but there's still deals to be had. I'm finding deals, not as many as I would like, but they're still out there to be had. So that's it from me. Hope you found the content rich, and I'll catch you all on the next video.
Turn down for what?